Yeah, I'll bring you on. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your girl, Aida Rodriguez. Welcome to another episode of Truth Serum. I am coming to you live from my sister's living room in Miami, Florida. I had a show there last night. I want to say thank you to all of the people that came out to support. It's been a very interesting week for the United States, as if every week is not an interesting week now. But specifically, when dealing with people of color, Black people, marginalized people, a lot of things that we've been seeing in the news that have been that affect us, and we want to get into the headlines and talk about that. I'm excited about today because today I have someone joining me who came to me by way of Karen Hunter because I am a Karen Hunter stan. And as part of my journey with Sirius's Urban View, I've had an opportunity to explore some of the people and the voices on the network that I actually really appreciate and like. We had Larry here, and I just wanted to extend my platform to the continuous voices, the voices there, because it just keeps expanding the thought of us being progressive, inclusive, and having conversations that include all of us, not just one group. So, without further ado, I want to welcome Clay to the show. Clay is a journalist, an author, TV personality, documentarian. It's just too much to name. Also, suited and booted and joining me here on Truth Serum. So I'm really happy to have you here. How are you, Clay?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling all right. Thank you for inviting me to the Truth Serum. Aida Rodriguez. Ever heard of a song by Ike and Tina Turner called Sexy Aida?
No, but I'm going to now.
That should be like your opening song when you do a show. It's called Sexy Aida, Ike and Tina, like oh today. But I'm super happy to be here. You came on my show. We had a great time. You could actually watch it on youtube.com/Clay Kane Show. But you're super fun. And I love your knowledge. I love your energy and all that good stuff. So thank you. What up to the Truth Serum folks? What up?
I'm glad you're here. I wanted to first of all, I wanted to give you a warm Truth Serum welcome. We welcome all the voices here. We tend to lean more on towards the progressive side of things because what is there to talk about if it's not progress?
Right. Hell yeah. Absolutely.
But I became intrigued with you. Someone on Twitter who was actually hating on me and praising you in the tweet made me go seek you out, and it was the best thing that ever happened because I just became fascinated by your journey and your walk and your truth, because I'm a church kid. I grew up in church as well.
Yeah.
And so just really hearing someone who I would have loved to have known during my walk in the church. So I'm just glad that you're here, and I want you to tell the audience in your words who you are and what your walk is, where you come from, and what you're doing.
I am a Black boy from West Philadelphia and a little bit of Washington State. I am somebody who has fought for my right to exist. I am somebody who has lived in people who affirmed me from the very beginning. And when you are affirmed very young, when you are affirmed by people who are integral to your journey, nobody else really matters. So I have walked in a space of truth. I have walked in a space of being unapologetic, and being all those things is what has brought me to where I am in my career. Being a writer, being a journalist, being an author, doing a doc for BET called Holler If You Hear Me Black and Gay in the Church, being on radio. It is because I have so much more work to do, but I have decided to be exactly who I am. And that can sometimes come with some challenges. You know that, Aida. That can sometimes come with some serious challenges. But that is at the core of who I am. And there's a quote that I live by from James Baldwin. And he said, "You have to go the way your blood beats."
Wow, I'm going to write that down.
Beats. And I sometimes say, you have to go the way your blood boils. I will change it from beat to boils. You have to go to the way. And that's what I've done. And I've always just tried to 1000% just be exactly who I am. and that's all that I could really do. And that's just the root of who I am. So that's in a nutshell what I do. And right now, I'm definitely more rooted in politics. I've always been more of a political person, and I'm blessed to be on Sirius XM, be on MSNBC, and speak as much truth as possible. And I am to the left, 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 because I have no option. There's no room for me anywhere else. I don't know what to tell you. Like, there's no. I think some folks might be a centrist if there's room to be a centrist for them, but there isn't an identity, whether it's poverty, whether it's race, whatever the case may be, where I can be a centrist. I live to the left, and folks like me are a threat to folks who want to maintain their power.
Listen, that's a word all unto itself. And you know, this is about you. And I will say, I was raised by a gay man who was in the church, and his inability to express himself to the fullest is what eventually led him to his death. And so my uncle was murdered in a hate crime. And so I always take to people who are able to live in their truth, especially in our communities, Black and brown communities, where there's an extra layer of consequence for being gay or trans, or being someone who identifies differently. So when I see you, you are a dream realized for someone just in my family. You know, you are the walking dream of someone who was very dear to me, and that was their aspiration, was to be able to just exist in its fullness without constantly being, chastised. I want to ask you, you grew up in church. What denomination of church did you grow up in?
Well, it's complicated. I don't know if I could say I grew up in church. I don't know if I can say that. I kind of sort of did. You know, when you say you're a church kid, it's folks get really they take it seriously. I was baptized apostolic, which is real like serious. Baptized apostolic. Like, women cover their head. You gotta always wear a dress. I was baptized apostolic. Went to my uncle's church a lot, which was Baptist. So when I was with my mother, she was anti-religion. My mother's white, anti-religion, because she saw Jehovah's Witnesses really destroy her family. So I want to be clear. When I talk about church, there is a lot of spiritual and theological violence in white churches as well, too. There's a lot of that there. But my work is more around Black communities. Now, when I'm in Philadelphia, my uncle was very religious, and he felt like I should be going to, church and all that good stuff. So I really began to, and then also in Philly, there was this uprisings of like underground churches everywhere. Somebody would just start a church in their apartment, start a church, go in, give some donations, because sadly, church is profitable. Right? Yeah. Sadly, these things are profitable. So that's a lot what I would see. And then just go through what I call before spiritual and theological violence. What's sad, and I say it all the time, and folks hate when I say it, if you want to meet a whole bunch of Black gay folks, just go to the Black church. Black LGBT folks, Black queer folks have been faithfully serving their churches since there was a church, since there was a Black church, faithfully, right? So this idea that we are rejected or we are not welcomed in these spaces is crazy to me. It's just insane. No. So one thing I learned from doing the doc, Black and Gay in the Church, is that for me, I cannot sit in oppression. I'm not going to sit in a space where I am being hated on. But I realize that for some folks, that is so much a part of their culture that walking away from their church is like walking away from their grandmother, walking away from their grandfather. This is where they first learn how to harmonize. Their very, very roots foundation is in this church. So it's more difficult to walk away. And of course, Black churches specifically have a certain kind of history of escaping from Jim Crow, escaping from slavery. So it's so complicated. It's so nuanced. But I've even had to learn to not judge folks who stay in these churches, because they have been conditioned as well. They have been programmed as well. And there's a reason why they are there. So I can't say I'm a church kid, but I could say I have some roots in it. And I was so blessed to be able to do that documentary. You can still watch it on BET.com. You can still watch the whole doc. I was really blessed.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it. I wrote it down because I said I was gonna watch it. And it's called Holler If You Hear Me, Black and Gay in the Church. So those of you who are listening, make sure. So John Clarence Sumter says he listens to Clay every weekday.
What up, John?
So I get it. I was baptized Catholic when I was born. Then my family became Pentecostal. And so they also wore the things on the head. The women only wore dresses. It was very Kojic. And then my family became Seventh-day Adventist. So there was a lot of change because there's so much extremism on all sides. And so, the constantly hearing that gay people were going to go to hell was traumatic for someone like me, because my uncle, who was raising me and in my life, was gay, and one of the people I love the most in the world. So to hear that was just, it made me say, I don't want to be a part of this, because I remember thinking to myself, if he's going to hell, I'm going with him, because he's the best person I know on the planet. Like, if that's the thing. And what it does to the psyche of a young child, like just to think about. One of the main one of the conversations that I see a lot in social media is that there's this gay agenda.
Right.
And it can be such a toxic conversation, because it really, we forget when we have these conversations and say these things, how it affects our children.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you how you felt about that, and what is it how do you, confront and address those statements?
Well, it's so silly because there's no pushback against heterosexuality. There's no pushback against whiteness. You know what I'm saying? So when you hear about this gay agenda or a black agenda or immigrant agenda, there's no pushback against people who have more of the power. So what it is just a trite talking point. It's a talking point to really try and make people afraid of the other. And it works. It works. Frederick Douglass was called some kind of radical. Frederick Douglass was considered to be, if they would have had the word communist back, they would have called him a communist. So anybody who pushes back, anybody who says, you know what, you will not treat me this way because of how I'm existing, it's somehow some kind of agenda. So I think and also, like I was saying before, it's profitable. It's profitable for people to think that being LGBT is just a white thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's profitable for Black folks to not like LGBT folks. It's profitable for quote unquote undocumented workers to think they're at war with poor white folks. It's the real agenda is massa gaslighting us. That's the real agenda. That's how massa gaslight us. And so I would say, don't fall for that. Don't fall for that. It's BS. Don't fall for that. It's profitable. It's propaganda. It's lies. And it's as American as American pie. Yeah. And I also tell people, when it comes to LGBT folks say, oh, well, I can have my opinion. You can. You could do what you want. So can a Klan member. You can have your opinion. But the truth is, when it comes to LGBT folks, there is nothing to disagree with. It's like disagreeing with the sun rising or the sun setting. Mm-hmm. It's as natural as the sun rising or the sun setting. There is nothing to disagree with or agree with. It's a natural thing. If you don't agree with if you are mad at the sun rising and sun setting, then I guess you can be mad at LGBT folks. But there is nothing to disagree with. This is who somebody is. So yeah, when it comes to the agenda conversation, the talking points on social media, it's massive gaslighting us, and a lot of times we fall for it.
All day. So in the news the last couple of days, Mr. Potato Head is now gender neutral.
Yeah.
And some people really, and this is to your point just now. So many people got caught up, outraged by this. And meanwhile, Bernie Sanders is trying to fight for minimum wage, and people are arguing and fighting about, Mr. Potato Head being gender neutral. I wanted to ask you, growing up, being gay, how affected were you by the things that were around you that didn't include your identity, and how does that help shape a mind? Because for some people that's ridiculous, but I know that to some child that might mean something, right? Because we only think about things from the perspective of us. It's hard to look beyond ourselves sometimes, but um, I wanted to ask you about how those things affected you personally, and what can you say to how things like that somebody else may take for granted can actually mean the world to someone that's young.
Well, I think what it also is growing up being gay and being black,
Mm-hmm.
because the handful of imagery I saw of gay folks, I just saw
Mm-hmm.
white folks.
Mm-hmm.
So this may sound weird to some folks, but for some reason when I was a kid, I didn't think black gay folks existed. So I just thought gay was a white thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that had a huge impact on me. And I just felt like it was yeah, I just didn't know that there was people like me who were also LGBT, right? So it was the connection of being gay and being black. And of course you're inundated, there are images that you see of, more heteronormative images, and that had an impact on me. But it never seeing representation of yourself, that was very difficult. But it's very strange. While that was tough growing up, right? When I got older and in my
Mm-hmm.
late teens, there was a certain kind of freedom in, and I've always been more of a leader than a follower. There
Mm-hmm.
was a certain kind of freedom in finding my own tribe and finding my own community and not being part of the mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
I really kind of digged it. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
cool. Like I would go to these clubs where you could only hear a certain kind of music. I was around people where it was just us. We were kind
Mm-hmm.
of like I found my tribe,
Right.
and I found all these people who could relate to what I felt when I was growing up.
That's beautiful.
So I got to tell you, outside of the religious angle of it, I had such a rough childhood, and it's in my
Mm-hmm.
book. Do this if you want to pick it up. Surviving the intersection of sexuality, God, and race. I had such a rough upbringing that when I came into myself and I found my tribe, I just made a choice to refuse. When I'm 18 years old, I refuse. I refuse to live in this constant state of begging for acceptance or tolerance. I don't need you to
Mm-hmm.
accept. You don't want to accept me, whatever. That's not gonna. So what am I gonna do? So I found my own people. So
Mm-hmm.
now I'm sure there's a beauty now where, not that it's perfect, there's still so much work to do, but there are more discussions like we're having right now about being
Mm-hmm.
LGBT. There are more discussions that young people are having. You can go on Instagram and see diverse couples in love. So that's really, really beautiful, and that's a great thing. But I will tell you, there was something great about my people, and it was beautiful. And sadly, a lot of them passed away now. But there was a freedom in that. And it gave me a certain kind of confidence where I could walk into certain spaces, being the only one in the room, and knowing I am supposed to be here,
Mm.
knowing that you are taking nothing away from me. I'm as smart as you. I'm probably smarter than you. I've, I've, I'm I'm in a diverse environment, because when you're on the quote unquote side of not being the majority, whatever that means, you know
Mm-hmm.
more about them than they know about you.
Absolutely.
Like, you know their music, you know their
Mm-hmm.
books, you know their dances, you know their television. They don't know our music. They don't know our books. I know more about you than you will ever know about me. I could tell you about, freaking Emily Dickinson and Sylvia Plath. I know your work. I was forced to absorb it.
That's right.
You wouldn't know about freaking, Phyllis Wheatley. You wouldn't know about
Mm.
Alan Locke. You would have no idea. I know all about you. So sometimes, and I had friends who empowered me now. Like, you walk in there and be you. Like, you know what it is. I know you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I also had a mother. My mother's white, who always affirmed me, always I had a white mother who always made sure I knew you don't have to aspire to whiteness.
Nice.
And that freed me. That freed me in a big way.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's and it's beautiful and it exists. And we never hear about it because we're always hearing about the other stories. Um, with respect to you as a full human being, because this is just one aspect of who you are, and we
Yeah.
like to focus on people's sexuality when they're not heterosexual, as if you're a llama of some
Right.
sort. It drives me crazy, and it's just you're a multidimensional human being. You have become a rising voice in this political fight that we're having, and for some reason, this political fight has become something that's very it's so ridiculous right now. There's so much celebrity worship when it comes to politics because politics and in Hollywood, they've intersected. There's so much lack of information. I don't ride for Democrats or Republicans. I ride for the people because I feel like the agendas have both missed the mark when it comes to improving the conditions and the situations of Black and brown people and marginalized people in this country. I want to talk to you about your show because you do you have a conversation about this stuff. How do you feel about where we are today in terms of the political landscape in America?
Well, I feel better than I felt a few months ago because I feel like history repeats itself, as the cliche goes, and I felt like we were moving in a time post the Civil War and this era called Reconstruction, when America was finally atoning for the horrific things that it did, and then we had a demonic president named Andrew Johnson who decided to gut all of that. But Reconstruction basically ends in 1877. Because white terrorism had a neurological breakdown and they got in their feelings and they did everything going right to the Supreme Court to take away rights. As a matter of fact, I believe it was October 15th, 1883, there was a Civil Rights Act. And folks don't realize we've had several Civil Rights Acts, like several. But there was one of 1875. By 1883, the Supreme Court said, it's unconstitutional. We don't need it. And so I got really scared when Amy Coney Barrett gets in. And I said, oh my God, we're getting ready to go into the era after Reconstruction. And that was a horrific moment for Black people. It was horrific. So with that in mind, with what I was seeing, it was mirroring history so much because I looked at Trump as being an Andrew Johnson. If y'all don't know him, look that cat up. He's the first president to be impeached. He was anti everything you could think of. He was very scary. And he was Abraham Lincoln's vice president. I know folks love Lincoln, but there was a reason why Lincoln had a demon like Andrew Johnson as his vice president, because he wanted to get the South. But anyway, I felt like it was Handmaid's Tale-ish. I felt like we were going into some really scary times. So what I was saying to people is that this election isn't about saving America. It isn't about saving them. It's about saving us. Folks said, oh, I'm going to show them I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden. If Joe Biden loses, he's going to be fine. Hillary Clinton lost, and she's in the orchards in upstate New York. So for me, it wasn't about saving them. It was about saving us, because Trump was immediate danger to our communities. And I'm telling y'all, if he would have got a second term, I think we would have saw horror like I just can't even imagine. He talked about nationwide stop and frisk. Nationwide stop and frisk. That's basically show me your papers. I know some folks say we already have that. No. It's different if it's a nationwide policy. I mean, he put a ban on any contracts that had racial sensitivity training. That would have directly affected HBCUs, which he tries to take credit for, which is so stupid, considering Alma Adams wrote the HBCU bill. But there were so many things happening that I said, oh my God, the writing is on the wall. So right about now, things aren't perfect. We still have a Congress, we still have a House and a Senate. We got this horrible person named Joe Manchin and Sinema in Arizona. But I got to tell you, I'm feeling better. I'm feeling good. We have Vice President Kamala Harris, who I've interviewed before. We have warriors like Stacey Abrams and Latasha Brown and Cliff Albright. We have people who are really doing some good work. And what I love about this moment, Ida, is that we are demanding that expectations be met.
Mm-hmm.
There was a demand that Joe Biden bring on a Black woman vice president. Black women leaders wrote an amazing article in the Washington Post and said, this must happen. The answer is now. That's it. And without folks saying, you're going to do this, I don't think it would have been done. Joe Biden was pressured, and he knew if you don't show up and choose, Val Deming, Stacey Abrams, Kamala Harris, this ain't going to work. And so I am feeling more optimistic as long as we demand, as long as we say, no, this must happen. This must happen, especially if we're in a space where we have the control. Now, let me be clear. I know folks say, oh, we have control of the Senate. Not really, because we don't have we have a tie. And there's these things called a simple majority and the supermajority. And we don't have the super part, so they can filibuster everything. Then we have demons like Joe Manchin. So control is relative. We have a tie. And we have to depend on all the freaking, Democrats doing the right thing. So the other thing that I think is a real disservice is that a lot of us, and this is no shade, we don't know how government works because we're not taught civics in class anymore. When I was 18 years old, I was a young, dumb, like, F the system, forget the system, I'm not going to vote, I hate all this, because I wasn't taught how government even worked. So we have a lot of folks who, they're going to get mad at Joe Biden. They're going to try to attack Kamala Harris. But you got to know how government works. Like the parliamentarian too, right there, as folks are saying in the comments. This is how government works. It's complicated, it's messy, and this is how it was designed, except for the filibuster. The framers didn't want a filibuster. That came around later. It's a relic of Jim Crow. But yeah, so I'm feeling good, Ida. I really, really am. I'm going to hold them all accountable. I'm going to scream loud if something terrible happens. But I feel like it's been a good 40 days, and I'm feeling all right. Are you there? Looks like Ida's frozen. Am I frozen? Well,
yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
What? Am I frozen?
I can hear you. If I'm not frozen,
am I frozen? Okay. No, I was gonna ask you, like, no, as you talked about how a lot of people don't know how the political system in this country works. We read our headlines from Twitter and we think that we have been informed because we read 2 hearty articles on Facebook and Twitter. But I wanted to ask you about this fight for minimum wage and the Senate voting against Bernie Sanders's, demand for $15 minimum wage. And, it's so funny because people attack you for anything now. It doesn't matter where you stand. There's always a group of people that will attack you for whatever you think. And I really, I am for a living wage in this country. I think we have a lot of wealth. It's always being thrown in our faces. And the average person in this country is struggling to survive, especially during a pandemic. And so I wanted to ask you what you thought about, what's going on with regard to this minimum wage fight.
It is disgusting. It is massive exploitation. It is the insidiousness of capitalism that people, some parts of this country are making $7.25 an hour. But let me even go, that's the federal minimum wage. Let me go even further, that folks are making $8 an hour, $9 an hour, $10 an hour, $11 an hour. That's disgusting. That's horrible. I've worked minimum wage. You can't live off of that. That makes no sense. We haven't had a hike in minimum wage since 2007. Really 2009. It's approved in 2007, then takes 2 years to happen. So let's say we would have gotten that $15. We wouldn't have minimum wage until like 2024. We wouldn't have that 15. It wouldn't happen overnight. So it's really, it's terrible. It angers me. And the truth is, if we would have, folks say, oh, it's too high of an increase. It's just way too much. Well, if we would have been gradually increasing the minimum wage, it will be even higher than that. So it's not too much. $15 is still isn't enough for me. For me, that's the start, but it should be a lot more. Then I hear folks say, oh, it'll hurt the economy. It'll hurt small businesses. Show me the receipts. Raising the minimum wage has never hurt the economy. Never. Show me a receipt where you increase the minimum wage and it's hurt the economy. Like, spare me. Have another argument. Just say you want to exploit poor people. Just say it. Just say you want folks to suffer. And I would at least have a modicum of respect for you. That's really what it is. You want to hurt people as much as possible. Let me give you some stats. In France, the minimum wage is $12.06. In Germany, $11.81. United Kingdom, $10.47. Canada, $10.23. Spain, $8.58. Slovenia, $7.95 in Slovenia. So come on now. Like, this doesn't make any sense. We're the richest country in the world. We have the biggest military budget, all these things. So it is the bottom of the barrel, and anybody who voted against it is un-American. They are cruel, they are soulless, and they don't care about the American people. Black, white, poor, whatever. Because there are white folks who are suffering in poverty in West Virginia. There are white folks who are suffering in poverty all over this country, working their ass off at a restaurant, begging for time and a half. It's terrible. It's disgusting. And I hate, well, maybe we'll raise it in this state, but not in this state. Across the board, every single state. And if we're not going to raise it during COVID, I don't know what this means. I just don't get it. So it hurts my heart.
I think it's interesting because I'm always, and I know many of us are always telling people how important it is to vote locally, to remember who these people are, these people who are, I say, misappropriating your funds, your money that you are pouring into these, into these politicians. Someone like Elaine Chao, who used funds for personal gain or use the office for personal gain. Like, these are the people who are making decisions about you being able to relief package and you being able to have a living wage. And so I'm outraged, just like you are. But I mean, how do we stress enough to the American people how important it is to pay attention to what happens?
Oh, you're breaking up. Well, what's up, Mary Porter? What's up, Justice Speaks? What's up, Frederick? What's up, Donna Marie? You there? You back, Ida?
Okay.
You back? Oh, Ida's breaking up.
Did you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now. Okay. Oh, wait. Oh, you back? Oh, I don't know. Anyway, what's up, Breeze?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Okay.
I was saying, how do we stress enough to people in this country? I apologize. I'm not home. I'm not in my natural space. So the internet here is really choppy. So my apologies to those of you who are watching and listening, and to you, Clay. This is not the normal. This is not how we do it here at Truth Serum. But I wanted to ask you, how do we stress enough to the people to pay attention to what's happening locally, who they're voting for and keeping in office? Like, there is a senator who just spoke at this crazy conference the other day to say that America is great because they freed the slaves. The Missouri guy, the one who held up the black fist during the insurrection on January 6th. So how do we stress enough to people how important it is for them to show up? There's a lot of apathy when it comes to voting.
Well, one of the things that I try and do is not shame people, because I understand why people think that voting doesn't matter. I understand why they think that. They've been taught to think that. I understand why folks say, well, no matter who's president, I haven't seen a change. I understand why they think that, because, again, we don't know civics. We don't know that your president doesn't have a big effect on you unless you have a wannabe dictator like Trump. And there are some. He doesn't respect the way that checks and balances work. But I try and not shame people. And what I try and do, I try and say, yo, what kind of work do you have? What kind of work do you do? So let's say I'm talking to somebody and they say, I'm a barber. I say, all right, well, if you're a barber, then I would think that you would care about your roads because you want folks to be able to drive to your barbershop. If you're a barber, I would think you would even care about those local taxes. Because if you own your shop, how much are you paying on taxes? You know, if you're a barber, I would think that you want to make sure that you as a small business, that you are being supported a certain kind of way. So you got to be aware of that city council. You got to know who your state rep is, right? So I try and tell people in a way, if they're open to it, some folks aren't open to it, the largest voting block are non-voters. It's the largest voting block. It's not Democrats or Republicans, it's non-voters. All these folks that voted in November, more folks didn't vote. You know what I'm saying? Well, I shouldn't say more. So many folks didn't vote. So I just try to encourage people personally and to say, hey, here's why you should care. Do you have a kid in school? All right. Well, you have a kid in school. Here are some. What's up with your school board, right? So let them know personally how these things affect them, because I keep saying it. It is profitable. It is profitable to believe these things don't work. The other side, they don't believe that. Republicans, they believe
that's right.
Even if it doesn't. Even voting against their own interests. Like I would hear folks say, Trump and Biden are the same thing. They're the lesser of the two evils. I'm like, no, they're not. But Biden and Trump are the same thing. And the other side doesn't think that. The other side believes that Trump is a freaking god. Not all of them, but enough of them believe he was like freaking Jesus. Our side, we're saying, oh, lesser of the two evils. No, they're not. That's propaganda that they want you to believe so you don't vote.
Absolutely.
Perfection, no, but not the same thing. Not the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, and the truth of it is that it's going to take time to undo what took so much time to do. And so as horrible as that sounds, and I'm one of those people that's willing to stand on the front line for the fight for us, but it's embedded in the DNA of this country. Like we are indoctrinated into this racist, at a very young age, we have been brainwashed into thinking that we are less than when we are people of color through images and media and things that are constantly around us, from the drugstore to your favorite TV show. So it's not going to be undone in an election cycle. I mean, Obama wasn't going to do it. Biden isn't going to do it. And quite honestly, I don't know which politician is going to do it. I know that we're going to have to play a big role in it, right? Because the power should be with the people. Yeah. And go ahead.
Well, the truth is that what we have right now, what we're getting to right now, y'all got to understand, this is not the way that it was designed. It was not designed to have a Black woman vice president. It was not designed this way. Certain things we're trying to do, we're going upstream. We're going against the grain. The framers did not see things this way at all. So this is going to be work. It's a long game. It's not 4 years. It's not 8 years. It was not designed this way. It was not designed for people without property to vote. It was not designed for women to vote. It was just not designed this way. So when you're going against the structural underpinnings of how it was created, it's going to be a lot of work. We literally only had 2 Black folks on the Supreme Court. 2. That's insane. It was not, and one of them is horrific. He's the anti-Thurgood Marshall. So I tell people that you're right. It's not going to happen overnight. And even beating Trump, it's only happened a handful of times to unseat a sitting president.
Right.
An election is designed to be a benefit for the incumbent, right? So it's easier for the incumbent to win. right? So it just wasn't designed this way. So it is going to take so much work. And, you know, not everybody's a politician. Some folks do a different kind of activism. Not everybody can be a politician. So I totally agree with you that I think we have to push people who have power, and we have to realize and understand and honor that it just wasn't made this way. And so we are going against a structure that was not for us. And it may not be possible to blow the entire structure up, but it's going to take a lot of pushing. And every movement we've had in this country, it has not been because of a politician. You know, slavery doesn't end because of Abraham Lincoln.
That's right.
Slavery ends because of Frederick Douglass and the nearly 200,000 black men who fought in the Civil War. We don't get the 1964 Civil Rights Act because Lyndon B. Johnson loved black people. It's because we had someone like Dr. Martin Luther King and Bayard Rustin pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. You know, we didn't get President Barack Obama because white folks suddenly got some soul and thought that, oh, this is, you know, no, it's because black folks turned out, because Obama didn't win the white vote. Black folks turned out. So it's always been us. With women's suffrage, it was women who said no more. It's always been us who have said, we're going to stand up. So the politicians, I saw this in Henry Louis Gates' documentary, the politicians have the position, but who really has the power? Who has the power?
You know, it's funny. I'm glad you said that, because there are a lot of people who will say that Obama became president because white women voted for him, because Oprah Winfrey's white women voted for him. And we made history when Obama ran for president, and how we showed up in numbers, right? So I'm so glad that you said that. I wanted to ask you, did you watch Jesus and the Black Messiah?
Judas and the Black Messiah.
Judas and the Black Messiah.
Yes. About Fred Hampton, of course. Yeah, I saw it.
You know, I was going to ask you because, you know, we get so caught up in this, in our racial war, because rightfully we deserve to have equality, equity, and justice. But it was sobering for me to watch it. I knew Fred Hampton's story, and for it to be refreshed, just to see a visual, you know, a young man, very young, someone that is white would be considered a child at that age, because the young woman who attacked the young black child at the hotel, the young Puerto Rican woman that said, "I'm only 22, I'm a kid."
Yeah.
Where Fred Hampton was, you know, assassinated by our government. What you said earlier, it just continues to ring and just resonate and re-resonate with me, is that the attack, the real problem here and the real deal is capitalism in this country and how toxic it is. And everything else is just a byproduct of that, including racism and slavery. And when they decided to blow a bunch of people who are under 25 years old and murder them and murder a pregnant woman, you know that they don't want you to come for their capitalism. I wanted you to speak to that, because you do speak to these things on your show, and you do. And I think that a lot of times we don't, we get so caught up in fighting, you know, it's gotten worse. It's dark skinned, light skinned people. Then there's the Black people who are not from America, and the immigrants versus, so they keep us busy. Like you said, the massa got us fighting each other all day long. Meanwhile, you know, we can't give $15 an hour so that Elon Musk can be the richest man in the world. And
Amazon barely pays taxes. Yeah, the real threat of Fred Hampton is that he was talking about uniting poor white folks, uniting Latin folks, Native Americans, Black folks. That scared the hell out of them, because that's the real threat.
That's right.
Let me take you all the way back to 1676. It's called Bacon's Rebellion. I don't know if you all know this little bit of American history. I'm gonna make it really, really plain. So Bacon's Rebellion, it is this uprising of Black folks, of poor whites, of Native Americans against the planter elite. The planter elite are the folks who run the plantations. So it is a massive uprising. It happens in Jamestown, Virginia. Bacon's Rebellion. They're uprising. They're going against the planter elite. They're losing their mind because they're not being paid fairly. They're asking for equal rights, equal wages, all this kind of stuff. Bacon's Rebellion. What happens? This is the beginning, the legalizing of whiteness. This is really important. That the planter elite got so afraid, they said, what can we do to calm these folks down? Let's give the poor white folks a few pennies. We're not going to pay the black folks, won't pay the Native Americans, but we'll give you a few pennies so you won't revolt with them. This is all Bacon's Rebellion, because white folks and black poor were all saying hell no to the planter elite, to the ruling class. And those white folks fell for it. Then what did they do? They began to legalize whiteness in the courts and in the church. This is the beginning of whiteness being legalized. It's really fascinating. It takes some time for this to happen. It doesn't happen in 1 or 2 years. It takes several decades for this to happen. But then they managed to create this class system based in race, exploitation, capitalism. Now, if those poor whites would have said, hell no, no, we're not taking your pennies. We're going to stick with our folks over here. Lerone Bennett Jr., one of my favorite scholars who's passed away, he would call it the road not taken. It was the road not taken. That was a fork in the road in American history. And if those poor folks would have worked together, we'd have a much different country. When they began to legalize whiteness, said, okay, blacks and whites can't vote. White folks can't vote. White folks don't have money, can't vote. But if you we'll give you a little bit of something. We'll at least say that you can't, a black person or Native American can't testify against you. It is the beginnings of the legalizing of whiteness. And so any leader who has pushed back against that, whether it is Dr. King with the Poor People's Campaign, whether it is Fred Hampton, that has always been the real danger, because you're unifying poor people. Because what's so important is to keep this status quo. And sadly, just like white folks did during Bacon's Rebellion, too many white folks fall for it. They fall. So it is that is a part of American history that should be taught in frickin' the 2nd grade. It's so important to know. That is the beginning of these horrific issues that we have. Now, of course, there's already a system of slavery happening, but they were revolting. They were revolting, and they said no. So it's harder to enslave someone who looks like you. Let's focus on these Africans and Native Americans. And when you fight back against it, it just changes everything. So it's a really important part of our history that we don't know, so we keep on repeating it. And that's the sad part. I'm sorry, I have a hard stop at 3 minutes, Aida. At 55.
No, it's okay. No, it's fine. We're about to wrap it up. I want people to know, first of all, I'm glad that you came, because it's fascinating to see the reaction of the people who watch the show. They learn something, they feel empowered, they feel like they're talking to someone who's speaking their language, and that's very important. I want people to support you, support your works. So please let the audience know where they can find you, what you have out there, when they can watch you, and where they can find you on social media.
Well, you can listen to me on SiriusXM, Urban View Channel 126. We're talking Powers That Becomes Action, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Download the app. They have a free trial, so check that out. You have me, Karen Hunter, Reverend Al Sharpton, Laree Favors. Also go to my YouTube page, youtube.com/Clay Cane Show, ClayCane Show, SHOW. All over social media at Clay Cane, ClayCane. Check me out. I'm there, grinding, hustling, all that good stuff. I have some good things in the works coming up. So it's just staying on that grind.
Nice. And where can they find you? And what's your Twitter handle?
Clay Cane, ClayCane.
Okay, so make sure you follow him today, and you show up and you listen to the show, because they're doing great work over there at Urban View. And it's important to support the people who look like you, sound like you, talk like you. It is where we find our power. I want to say thank you for being here, and I want you to come back, because I like for you to come back and break some of this stuff down. Maybe you can come back with Karen and Laree, and we can just have a real conversation here. but I'll be listening to your show.
Yes.
And I appreciate what you have to say, and I appreciate you being who you are. Sometimes you don't know how significant or what you mean to somebody by just being yourself. And for someone like me, it means the world because, like I said, you're a dream realized for someone who mattered so much to me.
Well, Ida, just say this before I go. You are a dream realized as well. I appreciate the work that you do. I think it's important to have more Afro-Latin folks out there speaking their truth, letting folks know that being Latin is not a white thing, that being Latin is not, that there is diversity in the Latin community. And that's really, really, really important, really crucial, because NASA gaslights us as well. They gaslight Black folks and Latin folks, you know, thinking that they don't want to be Black, they don't own it, whatever the case may be. And so it's so important to have more Afro-Latins out there speaking their voice, because y'all experience racism too. You know, the racism in DR, in Haiti, in Cuba, it's real. It's real. In Puerto Rico, which is part of the United States, it's real. So it's important that we as Black folks, we're in this together, and we as poor folks, we're in this together too. But some folks can't see the class lens as well. So I just really value your work, and you're funny as hell. You're funny as hell. And we need it. And you're funny but responsible. Well, we can have that conversation another time.
No, when you come back, we're gonna have that conversation.
No, we shouldn't, because I'm not a comedian, so I gotta know my lane. So I shouldn't talk about that. I shouldn't.
You do, because you buy the tickets and you sit in the audience, and that's true. You know, you're the consumer, and you
talked about a little bit on my show before, but you know, listen.
Make sure you go check that show out. It's available on YouTube as well.
Yeah, Clay King Show on YouTube. Yeah.
So thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Have a great weekend, and we'll be listening to you next week.
Great, and as I always say, I never really go on. All right.
See you later. Have a good day.